Hello everyone, this is Pendy.
And this is Paul, also known as EastX Twitch.
You know, I had the weirdest dream last night.
It wasn't the one about cuddling with Mendini again, was it?
No, not this time. First off, I felt like this snake with a weird jewel on its head was watching me somehow.
Yeah, that was probably just your imagination. What was the actual dream about?
Well, in the dream itself, Ortega from Dragon Quest III was training me as a young boy. By the way, why are you dressed in black armor and a helmet that covers up your face?
Because I'm not really EastX, you see. I'm your long-lost mentor, Ortega.
Oh, wow. Now that I see you without that helmet, you really are him.
You must trust me, Pendy. Hurry off to the bank and bring me your life savings. The safety of the world depends on it.
Okay, I'll be right back.
While Pendy falls for my clever and totally legal ruse, I'll welcome everyone to Alltrades DQ Media Abbey, a Slime Time podcast spinoff where we review various Dragon Quest media, including manga and anime.
We are currently reviewing the trio of the Great Adventure of Dai anime movies from the 1990s and the Dragon Quest X tie-in manga Rooming with a Gamer Gal. We'll start with Dai first, so let's strash it up.
All right, the first Dai movie is called The Great Adventure of Dai. In this movie, we get an alternate story for Dai on Dermline Island. Before the introductory credit scene, we see the Demon King being vanquished by a party of heroes. Afterwards, we're introduced to Dai palling around with his monster friends, including a golden slime with wings named Gomichan on Dermline Island. A mysterious ship appears carrying Leona, the princess of Pavnica, her advisor, and a party of soldiers. They've come to the island to investigate an evil presence that was prophesied by their priests. Some friendly monsters greet Leona's party, but the party assumes the monsters are evil, so they attack. Before the altercation goes too far, Dai shows up to defend his friends from the soldiers. When Dai can't beat them, Grandpa Brass, a deranger and father figure for Dai, shows up to intervene. After Brass gets everyone to stop fighting, the visitors make camp for the night. Meanwhile, Princess Leona insists that Dai show her around the island. As they travel, they run into a rampaging green dragon. While trying to defend themselves from the dragon, Leona gets knocked out by the sleeping breath of a funghoul, a mushroom monster, and then a papyrus flies away with her. Gomichan tells Grandpa Brass, who then leads the party of soldiers and Leona's advisor in the direction of where Leona was taken. Dai does the same on his own. He heads off there. We find out that after the Demon King Hadlar was defeated, his spirit was entombed in an evil god statue on Dermline Island. Hadlar begins to revive due to the moonlight in his cave, causing all the monsters on the island to turn evil, some of them even fighting each other. As the monsters begin to harass Leona, Dai shows up to protect her, of course. He has a tough time because he doesn't want to hurt his monster friends, though. So Leona gets knocked out, and Dai grabs her, but then he gets backed into a corner by the monsters. Luckily, a mysterious power awakens within him, causing a dragon-shaped crest to appear on his forehead. Just then, the six-armed Hadlar statue breaks free from the wall and attacks the young hero. Dai is outmatched at first, but then Gomichan lets out a brilliant light that briefly blinds Hadlar. At that moment, Grandpa Brass notices that the big third eye on top of Hadlar's head is his vulnerable spot, so he points it out to Dai. Our hero then performs a powerful Baggy Cross wind spell, launching himself up to stab Hadlar in his third eye. Hadlar is defeated, and then everyone escapes as the cave collapses. Leona thanks Dai and gives him her special Pavnica knife. They say their goodbyes, and Princess Leona sails away.
This was a fun little movie. You can tell they got some decent money to produce this, as the animation is fantastic and very fluid. This movie is part of Toei's anime fair that was released in theaters in July of 1991. This movie is grouped along with Dragon Ball Z, Cooler's Revenge, and Magical Talaluto 2, Magic Battle of Friendship. Imagine being able to see these three features together in the theater as a kid. What a time to be alive. This preceded the first Dai anime that would start airing in October of the same year. It was probably made to give people a taste of what they could do with the anime series. It even has all of the same voice actors that would go on to do the series as well. It's such an odd, alternate story for Dai on Dermline Island. Instead of Leona going there for a ritual of passage like in the manga and the anime, we get this battle against an imprisoned Hadlar. And instead of Hadlar invading the island, his evil energy is trapped there in a huge six-armed statue. I really like the design of the statue too. Dai's famous dragon crest appears here in the movie, but is not explained at all. Another difference I noted is that Princess Leona almost lets off a Gira spell at one point, which we know as the Sizz spell. In the manga and anime series, she can't use offensive magic as far as I can remember. When the party of soldiers first runs into monsters on Dermline Island, the gag that the sea slime has the most furious roar was quite amusing. I also noted the papyrus in this movie is the Dragon Quest II monster we know now as Pterodactyl. Speaking of monsters, you'll notice that Gomichan isn't affected by the Demon King's power to turn the monsters evil. That, along with his other mysterious powers, will go on to foreshadow what he really is. It was also not lost in me that at some point we have our our hero trying to save a princess from a green dragon. We all know what that reference is. Lastly, the music in this movie is absolutely fantastic. We get treated to wonderful remixes of classic Dragon Quest music that would later be used in the anime series. The only piece of music I didn't recognize was the music over the opening credits. That might have been a new piece done for the movie. Perhaps it could have been done by composer Hayato Matsuo, who helped arrange all of the Koichi Sugiyama music for the first Dai anime series. And on a side note, don't you just love random nudity? I'm joking, of course, but I thought it was funny the opening credit scenes had one with a bunch of naked dudes playing around in out of a river along with everyone else just going about their day.
Perhaps that's a traditional Japanese pastime. You mentioned most of the translation oddities that pop up in the fan subtitle version of this movie. Since this is not an official release, some of the monster and spell names are the original Japanese names, and others are taken from an older English game translation. This differs from the newer Adventure of Dai anime series, which uses the same monster and spell names as the modern Dragon Quest games. So, a few examples of this, including some new ones. Grandpa Brass is called a Deranger in this, and that is like an NES version name for his species. In Japan, that species is called a Kimendoshi, so nothing like what we translated to. But nowadays, we call him a lump shaman. So a lot of different species names there. Then we mentioned the papyrus, but that is actually a mistransliteration of the Japanese name. In other words, they read the Japanese name and they spelled it wrong in English because it's actually called a bapyrus in Japan. And can read katakana and hiragana, and I confirmed it is supposed to be bapyrus or papyrus, but not papyrus with a P. It just doesn't start with a P sound. Shame on them. And also that species was translated in one of the older games as vampirus or vampirus,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not actually a vampiric creature, so that probably was just a strange translation decision. But anyway, like you said, now it's called a pterodactyl. That's a better name, really. Then we have spells. You mentioned Gira is the Japanese name for Sizz, but also Dai uses Bagi Cross to get high enough to hit Hadlar's jewel on the top of his head, because he's like 5 stories tall or something. And of course, Bagi Cross is actually Kaswoosh, because Bagi is whoosh. So he's using the strongest whoosh spell, but he's not using it as an attack, he's using it to fly, which is an interesting thing to see. I don't think that happens in the actual Dai anime series.
Yeah, I don't think so. He uses some whoosh spells, maybe even Kaswoosh. I think he uses Kaswoosh at some point, but never uses it in that way. So that was fun to see as well.
Yeah, just a nice difference. Yeah, and it's not that Dai does fly around in the anime series, as does Pop, but they're using, what is the spell they're using to do that?
Zoom, but it's Leva Zoom when they're flying around.
There you go. Anyway, talking about the movie itself, Leona looks a little bit different in the movie and the old show compared to how she looks in the new series. Here, she has blonde hair, but in the new show, she has light orange hair. Light orange suits her better, if you ask me. This movie has a lot of the charm of the classic show, though, especially since it takes place on Dermline Island during the idyllic phase of Dai's youth, or right at the end of it. I mentioned it before, but I like the atmosphere of Dai living happily with the monsters, and I miss them when he leaves the island behind in the main series, because then it basically becomes like a series of boss fights. Not only boss fights, but a lot of that. Anyway, the big differences here between the main series and the movie are that Leona's advisor and soldiers don't betray her here, so we don't get the fights with the giant scorpion and the killing machine. I do miss the killing machine, but instead we get the green dragon fight and the Hadlar fight, and this is such a strange version of Hadlar. The giant statue doesn't resemble the actual character at all. Instead, it looks like a boss from Phantasy Star or some other JRPG. That makes this version very interesting, but we don't get any of Hadlar's charm and magnetism.
That's true. That's something that's missing. He's just a big, brooding, "Rah, I'm gonna kill everybody" bad guy.
Exactly.
So next is The Great Adventure of Dai 2, Avan's Disciples. Unlike the first Dai movie, this movie is supposed to take place within the continuity of the show. The events take place between episode 18 and 19 of the original anime. This is right after Dai and his friends defeat Crocodile. To begin the movie, we see a flashback of Avan sacrificing himself to try and take out Hadlar. After the opening from the anime series plays, we find Dai, Pop, and Mom heading towards the port town Sopia to catch a ship to the kingdom of Popnica. As they try and find the ship promised to them by the kingdom of Romos, Mad Dusa appears from the ocean and starts to wreck the port and all the ships docked there. Dai and company take the Mad Dusa out, but the damage is already done. Then the heroes find lodging for the night. While Mom and Pop sleep, a mysterious snake with a glowing jewel on its head slithers near them while they dream of their days training with Avan. Dai is still up practicing his sword skills, so the snake avoids him. The next day, the three heroes visit a bar and get jumped by sailors who are angry about their ships being wrecked. A mysterious figure helps them escape the bar. He then takes them beneath the lighthouse, where a massive ship is being built in a cove. The man is none other than Captain Nelson, and the ship being built is the one intended to take the heroes to Popnica. It's not quite done yet, so the heroes set up watch for the night. A mysterious fog rolls into the port against the wind, so the team goes to investigate. When the heroes arrive, they get separated in the fog and have to fight against an army of regular-sized Medusas. A figure in black armor appears before Pop and Mom during their fights. His familiar voice and knowledge of their past leads them to assume that he's Avan. The fog eventually rolls out and the heroes race back to the lighthouse. The figure in black appears again and claims to be Avan, brought back to life by Dark King Vern. Hey, Vern! He tries to get the heroes to join him. Mom and Pop believe he's Avan, but Dai doesn't fall for it. The fake Avan is exposed as phantasmal Mage Verdosa, a subordinate of Zabarera. Verdosa casts a spell that combines rocks into a flying rock snake. Dai and Verdosa battle each other, and Dai uses an Avan Strash to split the rock snake and Verdosa in two, defeating them. The next day, Dai and company board the Finnish ship and sail off to the kingdom of Popnica.
This movie is an improvement over the first one for a few reasons. First, it's actually canonical, an extra adventure for the heroes during their early days. That's neat. Second, Mom and Pop have joined Dai at this point in the story. They're both great characters who add to the fun, so it's nice to see them. Mom still has her magic bullet gun here too, a weapon that she eventually loses as the show and the manga go on. It's a cool weapon that I've missed seeing. Although Mom has very few bullets left to use in this movie, so we don't get that much of it. We also briefly get to see Hadlar and Zabuera in this movie. Hadlar is the real Hadlar from the series, of course, and Zabuera is up to no good as always. After the heroes have first encountered the Avan lookalike, there's a brief action sequence in which they rush back to the lighthouse. Dai swings from tree branches like a monkey, while Mom and Pop dash down a mountain or a hill. Pop stumbles and smacks into a rock during this sequence, which looks and sounds quite funny. You can always count on Pop for a laugh. That's one of my favorite parts. The fake Avan is a cool plot device. You could see why the heroes would be vulnerable to it, since they'd really missed their teacher at this point in the show, as with the audience. When fake Avan tells Pop to kill Dai, however, it looks like Pop is actually prepared to attack Dai. Mom has to talk him out of it. That's some shameful performance on Pop's part. At least we know that he'll grow as a person as the story continues in the series.
Yeah, this was an interesting little side quest movie from the anime series. My favorite part of the movie was seeing Pop and Mom dream about their days of training under Avan. I really liked seeing Mom get frustrated with her progress and Avan being a wise mentor to her. Meanwhile, we get to see Pop be a mischievous teenager and learn a valuable lesson. The concept of Verdosa using the memories in their dreams against them to become a fake Avan is a fun idea. He even goes so far as to swap out their insignias of Avan with fake replacements that take over their minds. Thank goodness Gome-chan is able to snap them out of it. The fact that this scheme to trick them was cooked up by Zabarera is very on brand for him. Also, watching the three of our heroes order milk at the bar was amusing. In the same scene, we also get to see Captain Nelson be somewhat of a badass, something not really explored in the show. In the beginning of the movie, with the Avan flashback, and at the very end, when the heroes have their moment on the ship, these scenes are both taken right out of the anime series. However, they're both reanimated here for the purpose of the movie. Thankfully, they didn't awkwardly insert scenes right from the show. I appreciate that. However, for the opening and the closing credits, they did use the opening and the closing songs and animation right from the anime series. The only odd part of the movie is when Dai is doing some late night training. He gets an image in his head of Leona being carried away by a pterodactyl. This did happen in the first movie, but not in the show. This makes no sense as this movie establishes the anime series Hadlar and not the weird statue Hadlar from the first movie that has no continuity with the show. Of course, maybe this is Dai worrying about what could be happening to Leona in Popnica since they are racing to see if she is all right. So maybe it does make sense. If so, perhaps it's just a wink and a nod to the first movie and not meant to be connected. Again, the music is fantastic. It has these great remixed Dragon Quest series scores. Battle, boss, field, tower, and cave music. There's even a remix of the casino theme when they are in the bar. There were a couple of pieces I didn't recognize, but at least 90% of the score was Dragon Quest series music. In the end, the moral of this story is don't go to sleep, kids, or the demon dream snakes will get to you. You might just get tired of those Avan strashing snakes in this Avan strashing movie.
I also wanted to talk about the new boss character, Verdosa. It's really cool to meet him in this movie. He looks slightly goofy. You know, he's got purple skin. He's got all these Medusa snakes coming out of his head. Some pretty cool armor, though. And he has very interesting abilities, which include reading people's dreams, copying forms from those dreams, and being able to create a giant rock snake. During the fight, Pop casts Marizoma, fire spell, which is called Kafrizzle in the modern English translations. Mom casts Behoimi, also known as mid-heal, on Dai when he gets hurt. Could she always use healing magic like that?
Yeah, somewhat, because she was a cleric and a warrior combined, like her mom and dad.
Okay, but she just couldn't do attack spells, and that's why she has the magic bullet gun?
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
Because she tried to, and they even show this in the little scene in this movie, but also in the show as well, that like she struggled with that. So that's why Avan gave her that magic bullet gun. But she could do like regular healing spells on her own, just not like very high level spells, so like mid heal or regular heal, things like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was Leona who's like the master healer, where she could do like the high level healing spells. So next is rooming with a gamer gal. We'll start with server 23, stopping by a cafe on the way home from work. In this chapter, we see Satsuki passing by a cafe on his way home from work. He coincidentally runs into Miyako, who is there to meet a friend. Miyako's friend hasn't arrived yet, so she invites Satsuki to have coffee with her while she waits. Her friend, Ayano, arrives and invites Satsuki to join her and Miyako for dinner. This leads to Ayano inviting Satsuki to an upcoming barbecue. Satsuki's social anxiety finally gets the best of him after a while, and he heads home. After he leaves, Ayano encourages Miyako to still bring Satsuki to the barbecue.
This chapter takes place entirely in the real world, rather than having some Dragon Quest X parts, which is a pleasant change of pace, though there are still some Dragon Quest references. This time we learn all about how shy Satsuki is. He's afraid to enter a Starbucks, which makes very little sense. Miyako gets him to go in, but then he's afraid to meet Ayano. Even though Ayano is super friendly and nice to Satsuki, he's still afraid of her, which is kind of sad. Now, I am a pretty shy person by American standards, and I do have times when I don't feel like going out or meeting someone new, but I believe that it's important to embrace opportunities to make new friends and to have a nice time with your existing ones. Let's hope that Satsuki will eventually start to get better around other people and not just Miyako.
Yeah, just wow on this one. I mean, I knew Satsuki had some social hangups, but I guess I didn't realize to what extent. It was fun that Miyako coached him along by talking in Dragon Quest terms, whether it was trying to get Satsuki to think of going out like he does in Astolia, or mentioning thwack and instant death-proof equipment. It actually reminded me of my time in basic training for the Air Force. During that time, it was an extremely stressful situation, but I tried to imagine it all like a game, and that helped me get through it. Before I read the next server, I was sure that Miyako was going to get Satsuki to go to this barbecue. I was hoping he was going to avoid getting thwacked from having to deal with so many people all at once, but that was not to be.
Uh-oh. In Server 24, All Kinds of Dragon Quest, after a quick recap of the previous chapter, this one depicts Satsuki and Miyako discussing the upcoming barbecue at home. Satsuki is still resistant to the idea of going. When he tries to explain his feelings in Dragon Quest terms, he exposes his obsession with heel slimes. During the conversation, Miyako gets a text that her ex-boyfriend will be at the barbecue. With this in mind, she again invites Satsuki along, thinking he would be a welcome distraction from her ex's presence. Realizing that coming along would help out Miyako, Satsuki reluctantly agrees to go. Alright? But Miyako appreciates the gesture, but she doesn't let him off. Miyako does appreciate the gesture, but she lets him off the hook and goes by herself. Anyway, she returns from the barbecue in good spirits and points out how her ex has gained weight.
The author of the manga really had me going here. I thought they were setting up the classic drama scenario where Satsuki, Miyako, and the ex would have an awkward encounter with each other. Maybe the ex would assume Satsuki was the new boyfriend and try and intimidate him a little bit. But in the end, it was just a gesture of Satsuki agreeing to go to help out Miyako. Still doing baby steps for Satsuki's character growth, which is fine. On the lighter side, apparently when this was published, this was Dragon Quest's 30th anniversary. The little nod to it in this server is great. Also on this server, Satsuki's obsession with heel slimes is at times adorable, endearing, and downright disturbing. I particularly love the image of him just chucking bread at a heel slime as he plays as Turniko in the Mysterious Dungeon game. We got one of those games localized for the PlayStation 1 back in the day. I don't know what my problem was, but I couldn't get very far in the game without dying. Either I was just horrible at it, or I didn't understand the game mechanics. One of these days, I need to go back and try it again. Did you ever play that game, EastX, or any of the other Mysterious Dungeon games?
I've always been interested in them because I like roguelikes, and they are roguelikes, you know, and there's chocobo ones and such, but I have not actually played any of these. I did play Shiren the Wanderer, which I believe is a related series that plays almost identically from what I can tell. But Japanese roguelikes, they're like highly influenced by the original Rogue game, and they play in this kind of like very challenging but unintuitive way, like the basic gameplay of it. Mm-hmm. So it's probably why you had a hard time with it.
Oh, okay. That would make sense. So the last thing I wanted to cover was Satsuki admitting he had never played a Dragon Quest Monsters game. Fake fan! Get him out of here! I can't read this manga anymore. Jeez. I'm just kidding, of course, but Miyako comes in again, showing us that her experience with Dragon Quest and games in general seems to be much greater than Satsuki's experience. Maybe Satsuki has been playing too many ecchi games like he referenced in a previous server. Great server overall, and I enjoyed the conversations they had about or related to Dragon Quest.
I actually like the previous chapter a little bit better. This one is still fun. We have the mild drama of whether Satsuki and Miyako will be attending the barbecue together, with a nice discussion of the Dragon Quest series thrown in the middle. In that discussion, Satsuki compares himself to a model slime from Dragon Quest VI, and Ayano to Nelgel, the boss of Dragon Quest X. Those characters would be familiar to someone who played Dragon Quest Tact like we did also.
Yes. Yeah, I remember one of the people in our guild had like a max level Nelgil, and he was a weird little boss monster, but when you powered him up, he was pretty nasty.
Yep, scary dude. I found it interesting that Miyako was planning to decline the invitation to the barbecue since Satsuki wouldn't be going with her. But then she changed her mind when she learned that her ex was attending. It seems that she was interested in seeing how her ex was doing, and we later see that she's glad that he's gained some weight. I was a little disappointed that Satsuki didn't join her for the barbecue, but this is a slow-paced series, so he has to go through those baby steps you mentioned before, I suppose. Another fascinating thing is that Miyako thinks to herself that she doesn't exactly want Ayano to see Satsuki. Why doesn't she want her to see him? There doesn't seem to be much reason for jealousy given that Ayano has a boyfriend. It does give me the impression that Miyako is starting to feel possessive of Satsuki, though.
Perhaps. So our next episode will be the last piece of Dai media we will ever review.
That's a shame. I guess our show will be over now.
Oh, goddess, no. We are going to start reviewing a different show called The Brave Yoshihiko.
Are you sure that's a real show?
I hope so.
Well, I guess you're right. In fact, I'm told that The Brave Yoshihiko is a live-action comedy show that mostly parodies Dragon Quest. The main character is even dressed up like the protagonist from Dragon Quest V with the turban and the cape.
Indeed. I know there will be a few other surprises as well from the clips I've seen. I'm really looking forward to this one.
So am I. And with that, we wrap up this episode of Alltrades DQ Media Abbey. If you want to prepare for our next episode, be sure to watch the final Dai movie titled The Great Adventure of Dai 3, 6 Great Generals. But you'll also need to watch the first episode of The Brave Yoshihiko and read chapters 25 and 26 of Rooming with a Gamer Gal. You can watch the Dai movie in fan subtitled form at the completely legal site Otaku Streamers or at similar sites. The Brave Yoshihiko is available with fan subs on the Internet Archive website, and Rooming with a Gamer Gal is available through the Manga Up app.
We're a non-profit podcast. We won't steal the dreams of your hard-earned gold when we can offer you quality content for free. But if you do have some extra gold that's just completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, or treasure chest, and you would like to donate anything to a website that's been supporting Dragon Quest fans for over 25 years, stop by the Dragon's Den by clicking the link in the show notes. There are several ways to support the Den, including the affiliate links that don't cost you anything extra when making other Dragon Quest purchases. By the time this episode is published, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake should be available, everybody.
Man, I can't wait to play that. And we even have a Slime Time t-shirt that was designed by our resident artist, Dwayne. See the link for it in the show notes.
As part of the Slime Time Extended Universe, or STU, you can direct comments or questions for the podcast on X and Instagram at DQ Slime Time.
And you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/EastXTwitch. Come watch me play a variety of games every Saturday, kids.
And you will be doing a special Dragon Quest III remake episode coming up this weekend, and I'll be guesting on that, so I appreciate it.
That's right. That's going to be a lot of fun, and after the stream has aired, people can watch the replay of it on my YouTube channel.
Awesome. Join in tons of Dragon Quest discussion at the Dragon's Den forums and Discord, and the Dragon Questers and Slime Time Facebook groups. And we have a new Discord for Dragon Questers as well that you can now join.
Fancy. We'd like to thank everyone that made this podcast possible, including Pendy, Woodus, the Dragon's Den, and Miyako's surprisingly hot friend, Ayano. I'd attend her barbecues anytime.
Agreed. Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast.
We'll catch you later, everybody. Don't hate, appreciate.
Time to zoom on out of here.
た靴の数と同じだけの夢たち時には見失って探してやがて追いつきこの道我が旅果てしなく続く
This is slime time! General Flazzard here! Beware my five-finger flares!